It's been an interesting year with the rain, which we need, but yeah, the weather's all over the map.
I know.
Wildfires out there right now. Holy.
Totally. Yeah, totally. There's lots of stuff going on. It's it's weird stuff, weird time with all that stuff, right? But you just kind of dig in and hang on and whatever. It's so funny because like I don't even know what like a normal summer is anymore because we're so plagued with smoke and wildfires every year, or the extreme heat with no rain, or all of a sudden you get a summer where it's just rain and no heat, and I don't even know it's normal anymore.
Exactly. It's a new world.
Yeah, exactly. Just
since 2020, everything has changed.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, in a lot of ways. Yeah, in a lot of ways.
Have you done the wildfires? Have you gone out there before to BC or northern Alberta?
No, I haven't. I put my name in when Fort McMurray happened. I put my name in for that, but didn't get selected. There's always lots of us that put our hands up for those types of things, and they just pick who they pick. And I wasn't picked for that, so I just stuck around here and did looked after things in Calgary, which is fine. And in hindsight, I'm kind of glad I never went and did that. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting because Calgary's we're not wildland specialists, right? In wildland firefighting, we focus on municipal. So, I mean, even when we get deployed up to these locations, most of the time we're just looking after the cities or the towns that are threatened, right? And then those firefighters then have the ability to go and work in the forest and try to deal with
areas. Yeah.
Yeah, because we're not really trained in that. You know what I mean? As Calgary Fire, we can deal with it like on a local level, but like to the scale of those magnitudes, like those are huge and incredibly dangerous incidents, right? So we go up there to sort of look after the residential structures in the actual cities, right, rather than head in there. But obviously it can still be super dangerous when the entire city is surrounded by it. So
totally. Yeah. Have you been at one station pretty much your whole career?
I'm not at one station. I'm actually off the floor now, so I don't work on the trucks anymore. But I have worked at one station, but I've worked all over the city in my 15 years, kind of a.
Oh no, I meant
one specific station.
Oh, I'm sorry. I guess station one. Yeah.
I thought you meant station number one, and that's pretty. I think that's our busiest station in the city. Like those, the guys down there run nonstop. But I worked predominantly in the south. I actually grew up in South Calgary, so I've been fortunate enough to spend most of my operational career working down here, which is super. I really like it. I mean, there's a bit of risk associated to it because you might respond to somebody your family or something like that. But I take a lot of pride in quite literally serving the community that I grew up in. I've always enjoyed that. I thought that was really cool.
When you're in your community, it's hard at times because you might know the people you're going to and.
Totally. Yeah. There's huge. Yeah, that's a factor for sure, and it creates a little bit of extra stress. I mean, like I remember I was working out of the station in Canyon Meadows. This was a few years ago, and we were working there, and we got called. It was right around dinner time, 5 or 6 o'clock at night or whatever, right? And call goes off for an accident on McLeod and 22X, like right out kind of by Spruce Meadows area there. Mm-hmm. And so we're driving there, and as we're going there, the information's coming in that it's a double fatality, and there's 2 people dead on scene, and we're having to get stars out there to transport the third one. And my first thought was like, oh geez, like please don't let it be kids, right? And then my second thought was, I really hope I don't know these people. You know what I mean? Because it's like right around the rush hour time. I'm born and raised in South Calgary. It's like there's a chance that could be somebody that I know. You know what I mean? Directly, right? And so those are
their parents or somebody.
100%. Yeah, exactly, right. So I mean, thankfully I didn't from a personal perspective, but that's always the risk of working in your community. That's always kind of bittersweet. You enjoy the walks to work, but sometimes when you're, the addresses come in and it's stressful. Another one actually out of that Canyon Meadows station that I worked at. We were working there one day, and I was the driver, and a call came in for a cardiac arrest. For someone who has gone into full cardiac arrest, and the address comes through, and one of the guys I'm working with, like his face just goes white, and I looked at him like, what's up? He's like, that's my address. And it's like, yeah, right. And it's like, okay, like this is real quick. And I mean, I've never driven a fire truck faster than that in my entire life. Like we were absolutely flying down the road down, Acadia to get there. And it ended up being his neighbor, but it was someone from, in the vicinity that just gave them his address because it was close by. But it was actually, a guy I worked with. It was his neighbor that had passed away. So we had to go and run that scene and work that scene with him. And that's tough, right? Like that's
Their emotions are all over the place.
Oh man. So he's got to go home at the end of that shift and explain to his kids, what happened to the neighbor. And it's tough, but I mean, I'll never forget that look on his face when he was like, that's my address. And it's like, holy shit, man. Like that got real quick. Right. and then off you go.
Yeah. So Lorne, thanks again for doing this. I appreciate it, man.
Oh man, I really appreciate the opportunity. I know you do such great work, and are always out sharing people's stories. And yeah, I'm humbled and honored to share this space with you and have this chat. And I really appreciate the opportunity.
We're one big community, aren't we?
100%. Yeah, 100%. Absolutely.
And we often forget that we're just people. And
yeah,
if you strip everything away and all the noise, it's like human to human. And I think in such a busy, noisy time, this is needed more than ever, these kind of conversations.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of goes hand in hand with, my new role in the fire department, with what I'm doing as a resilience officer, right? In terms of giving our folks the tools and processes and resources to have these conversations and make sure they're as mentally and physically resilient as they can be to challenges they'll face on and off the job, right? So yeah, these conversations are critically important. And in this role and with my experiences, both personally and professionally, I find I have a lot of these conversations, both, formally and informally, people that want to do it on, these types of platforms where it's much more open. And there's a lot of people that still want to have those conversations, kind of one-on-one behind closed doors, which is fine too.
They're still happening. Exactly. The spark is still there. So
yeah.
For the listeners, Lorne, so you are born and raised in Calgary.
Yep.
Did you always know you wanted to be a firefighter?
It's always been kind of one of those childhood fantasies per se, right? I think, most kids growing up in Canada, I think at one time or another, they either wanted to be a hockey player or a firefighter. Both of those things were on my list. But it became critically evident that this is what I wanted to do for a career. And it was a calling for me actually on September 11th, 2001, when the incidents happened in New York. I was living in Campbell River at the time. I was playing hockey on Vancouver Island, and I had just been cut from a team that I was trying out for. And so I was literally sitting on at that time, a stranger's couch. One dream had ended with, being cut from that hockey team. I realized my goal of making NHL probably wasn't going to happen. And as I watched those, that footage of New York and saw all those people running and the incredibly, difficult situations that they were facing, I also noticed all the helpers, that were running to the scene, whether they were firefighters, police, paramedics, general public. People were running towards that as a lot of people were running away, and I thought to myself at that exact moment, I said, you know what, I think I can do that. I think I can be a helper, and I think I can be one of those people that rides that truck and helps people on the worst day of their lives. And that's when it really started, that whole journey to, becoming a first responder and a firefighter. And that was in, like I said, 2001. And it was important to me to get an education. So I went out and got an education in Calgary at Mount Royal. And then joined the fire department. Graduated in 2006 from Mount Royal and joined the fire department in 2007. And here we are, still working there.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And obviously over the years, your roles have changed, and what you aspire to want out of your team and the folks around you has probably changed your perspective as well.
For sure. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. I mean, we're always growing, we're always learning. And, I really try to embody the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset, right? And how can we grow and how can we learn and how can we be better at what we're doing? And when you really adopt that growth mindset, your potential is unlimited, right? And you find that your life just sort of catapults with this momentum that's sort of unstoppable, and you're just sort of holding the reins and along for the ride and trying to make the most out of it, right? But yeah, things change. You new things happen in your life, both personally and professionally, and your perspective change on things, and you learn and you adapt and you grow, right? And that's what this whole ride of life is all about, in my opinion.
It really is. It's a journey.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it's a roller coaster, right? So there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, and we all know that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
When you look back at your hockey career, there's that belief that's been shattered where it's like, oh man, I'm not going to make the NHL. Yeah. Looking back, it's easier to say now, but I bet in that moment, you're crushed because it takes so much out of you to play hockey. Your friends, your community, the folks around you, mom and dad, it's not a cheap sport. We know that.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
So how did you handle, I don't want to call it failure, but more or less not living up to what you wanted it to be, the outcome?
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, we can call it a failure because I'm okay with
failure.
that.
I think it's, I think a failure is when you stay in that space, but you didn't
Yeah, for
stay in
sure.
that space.
Yeah, fair, for sure. And at that time, you're right. It was really tough because, me and, my family and a lot of friends and stuff, we had poured a lot of resources into, going down that path. Right. And that was, a really good learning opportunity for myself because I didn't achieve, what my goal was. But I took a lot of comfort and a lot of peace out of the fact, knowing that I'd done everything I could to get there. And with that, at the end of the day, I vividly remember, and that's one of the things I learned from playing hockey growing up in team sports and all that stuff, is like, you have a role and, you do your job to the best of your ability. And if you leave everything on the table and do everything you can, then that's it. You control what you can control, and then the rest of the chips are going to fall where they're going to fall, right? And when I came to sort of the end of that rope, I was able to look myself in the mirror, and I was covered in scars and stitches and all these things, and I'd literally tried to fight on my way onto a team, and it didn't work. I didn't make it, right? And I knew, I was like, okay, I've done everything I can, and I'm at peace with that, right? I know that, this wasn't the way my story was supposed to go. So let's take what we can from this experience and learn from it and grow from it, and focus those lessons and that energy on the next objective and the next task and whatever that's going to be, right?
Sometimes when we don't get the outcome we hoped for, we can often get stuck in it, that space, and it's not always pretty, and it can be dark. Is it nature or nurture?
Yeah, I think, honestly, man, I think it's a little bit of both. I think it has to do really with your support network, who you surround yourself with, because you can't do these things on your own, right? As much as some of us try to do that or think we're doing that, like it's a huge, life is a team sport, right? Life is really a team sport, and surrounding yourself with like-minded and successful people will bring you up, right? And one of the things I've learned, especially over the last couple of years, is the value of nurturing those and cultivating those really important relationships in your life, right? Because when you're in those dark times, or when you get knocked down, or things aren't going the way you had planned, those are the people that are really going to be there to help prop you back up, help pump you back up, and keep you moving forward, right? And then when the tables turn, it's your turn to sort of pay that back to them, right? So when that happened, I learned pretty quickly that you just got to reach into your toolbox and pick yourself up and lean on those, ask for help, ask for support, and listen to people, right? Like, that's a big thing, is really listening to people, right? And taking responsibility for your own situation. That's another thing, right? Like, that's huge these days. Is, in today's society, I find most people are pretty quick to blame everything on somebody else, right? And point the finger. That's really easy to do. It's not as hard or it's much harder, I should say, to sort of point that finger at yourself and realize that you are the captain of your own ship, and it's up to you where you want to steer it, right? And taking extreme ownership of your situation is tough, but it's also incredibly empowering, right? Once you realize, like, it's like, okay, I can do this. Like, I'm actually in more control than I thought I was, because in difficult situations, people always sort of feel that loss of control, right? And it's like, well, when you're in charge of your own ship and your own story, you actually do still have a lot of power and a lot of control, right? And then you got to go out and execute. As
you get older in life and you surround yourself with good people, you realize that, hey, maybe moments in your own life, or watching others and observing how they interact on social media, specifically, like calling people out, or the banter, and you wonder, is that a direct reflection or a projection of what you're feeling inside? The anger. That's the way I look at it now. I don't always look at, oh, they're yelling at XYZ. It's like, why are you doing that?
Totally. Yeah. Totally. It's I find that, kind of stuff so bizarre, and I really try to limit myself on that. Yeah. I've really tried to, over the last couple of years, another lesson I've learned is you really got to manage your inputs, right? Because it's like, as soon as an input comes in, whatever that is, whether that's on the news, whether that's social media, whether that's somebody you're talking to, whatever it is, they're all inputs for you, and you have to manage them some way regardless, right? Like, whether you're going to react to them or whether you're going to file them away in your brain as a thought or a feeling or whatever, you've got to react to them, right? And so it's kind of, in some ways, at some points, it's that ignorance is bliss, right? And kind of out of sight, out of mind. And because if that has absolutely nothing to do with me or my wheelhouse or my world or my space, then I really don't want to entertain the thought of having to do anything on it, right? So I've really tried to manage my inputs on that sort of stuff and set some of those clear boundaries, because every time an input comes in, like I said, you have to deal with it, and that's a draw on your system and draw on your resources, right? And is that a good investment of my resources? No, right? Because I do not care what that person thinks or talks about or whatever, because they're dealing with their own stuff clearly, but they don't deserve any of my energy or space, so I'm not going to give it to them.
I read something, Lorne, and you talked about time and how what you've gone through up to today, that's all we have.
Yep.
How we spend it, that's the currency. That's truly the value.
Yeah.
The minutes don't come back. We can't get them back.
Yeah. Yeah. Time is our most valuable currency for sure. And how you want to spend that is 100% up to you and on your own accord, right? And I saw a thing that was really interesting the other day. It was a little clip online I saw, and it talked about, imagine, 50 years from now, you and I fast forward 50 years, you're on your deathbed, you're laying there and you're taking your last few breaths. They're starting to get shallower. And you're sitting there and you're kind of thinking about that whole life. You're like, there's no more hugging your kids. There's no more hugging your wife. There's no more experiencing sunsets, feeling that warmth on your face, any of that stuff. This is it. And as you sort of start to run out of those last few breaths, an angel appears in the room and sort of gives you that wish to say, okay, if you want, we can call it here, or we can go back to where you and I sit right now in that time in your life, and you can do it all over again. And if you live your life with that perspective of, okay, like I'm now in that seat and I'm now reliving that, like this is now my chance, how would you live your life differently from how you're living it right now? And that's kind of the perspective I have, right? Like being so close to death, it's like, okay, like this is your chance. I realize we've all got 2 lives, and our second one starts when we realize that we actually only have one. Right. And it's like, as soon as you learn that lesson, whenever that is, that's when you're really in control and really have, the power to live your best life and get out there and do your best work. Right. And that's kind of the seat that I sit in now as I look forward. It's like, hey, this is it. Like you're on, your third lap at this, right? I've had my life saved twice now from, emergency surgery. And it's incredible to sit here and realize that and have that lesson and perspective now. Cause it's like, this is it. Like make the most of this, because like you said, time is our most valuable currency, and none of us know when that, bank account is going to run dry. We can't check our account and say, oh yeah, we got 3 years left, or we got 30 years left, or whatever. It's like that account will run dry one day, and you probably won't know when that's going to happen. Right. So you just got to make the most of it and spend that currency wisely.
Enjoy the ride. Smile.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Live it up. Right. Like life is, as they say, too short. So just enjoy the ride. And life is such a wonderful, wonderful experience, and a wonderful ride of highs and lows. And, when we're riding those high times, like life is good. We're all comfortable and everything's great. Right. But inevitably it's going to go down, and you're going to be uncomfortable again at some point, and you're going to face tough times and tough challenges, because nobody's immune to the challenges of life. Like we're all going to face some really, really tough stuff. Like that's a given. Like there's no way around that. Right. But when those times come, that's when you can really lean into it and really learn and have your most growth and most, personal development, and really become better than you were on the other side. Right. So, and that's what, it's all about, right? And that pendulum will swing back. If you're uncomfortable, it will swing back to being comfortable again, right? Know that, right? But while you're in those tough spots and you're suffering, that's where, like I said, again, all that learning and personal growth comes from, is in those dark and tough times. And you got to lean on your social network and all that stuff, and reach out for help and build yourself back to a version that you never knew was possible, right?
Yeah. And then you tap into yourself, that resiliency, through isolation. Even though there's people in the room, you need to go within yourself, find the strength, and then, get out there. Yeah. You play a huge role in that, right? Like I said, taking extreme responsibility for your own situation, because I have an incredibly supportive network of family and friends and strangers and all that stuff that are cheering me on. And I love it. And it's funny, because one of the most common comments that I get is, you're not alone. We're here with you. You got this. And it's like, well, hold on a sec. Like I am alone. I am the one sitting on that chair in the appointment room. It's my eyes the doctors are looking in. It's my name that's on the door. It's my name that's on the appointment. So I am alone in this. In a lot of ways, like I am. I feel in love and get all that support, and that's incredibly helpful. And I wouldn't be here without it. But at the end of the day, it's me walking that line, and it's me sitting in those chairs. So you're right. You got to turn in and look inwards and make those critical decisions, because I'm the one that has the power to make the decisions on how I want to live my life, regardless of what the tests say or the doctors say, whatever.
I'm the one who's in charge of how I decide to live that life. And those are the decisions that I get to make. And that's where, like I said, you get a lot of that control and a lot of that power back. And it's like, okay, I still have control and power over this and how I'm going to do it, how I'm going to write my story and share this experience with people, right? And I've truly tried my best over the last couple of years to do that. I mean, I've had, like I said, a ton of support, but I've really tried to sort of take that optimistic pursuit of that, right? Because I've learned, like, if this is my story, like this is it, right? This is how my story's going. And I want to be a person, like, when other people are around me, they are lifted up, right? Nobody wants to be around a glass half empty, pessimistic person, because it sucks the energy and the life out of the room, right? You don't want to be that person. You want to be that other one that people, when they're around you, they feel good about themselves. They feel better. They feel energized. They feel empowered, all those things. And I said, okay, well, if I play my hand accordingly with that kind of a mindset and thought process, hopefully that resonates with the rest of the community and the group that surrounds me. I know I'm not perfect. Yes, I have bad days. You know what I mean? I have really tough times. These are the toughest of times, right? But if you can try to use that as like your central focus point and use that as your push point, then I find generally things work out pretty well, and people give that energy back to you, and it's in even the most difficult of situations, it can still be positive, and you can still get a lot of really good things out of it.
We're only human, Lorne.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like we said initially, like, we're only human, right? We're all stripped down. We're all people. You know what I mean? We all have the same feelings, and we all feel that stuff, right? So, and it's important to acknowledge that, right? It's a process, and you're constantly working on yourself. And even the other day, I was talking to my wife, Lindsay, and I had an appointment a couple weeks ago, a CT scan and checking out things, and going to Tom Baker for the follow-up. Like, those are stressful times, right? Like, those are really stressful times. And we call it scanxiety in the cancer world, right? Because you're really anxious about those scans, and it crept up on me a little bit more than I thought it was going to this time. And, Lindsay and I had a conversation about it, and was like, okay, I need to go in for a quick tune-up. So I called my psychologist, and I'm going in on Monday, you know what I mean? Just to make sure we stay on top of that, right? Because keeping this healthy is just as important as keeping the rest of your body healthy, right? Because you can't have one without the other. And if one of them is struggling, the other one will inevitably struggle too. So you just gotta stay on top of it and recognize and acknowledge that that's okay. Like, I'm having some stumbling blocks up there, and we'll fix it. It's no problem. It's no different than if my arm hurts, I go to the physio and fix that, right? It's really no different, right?
And sometimes fixing it just means I just want to be alone. I just want to do my own thing.
Yeah.
Tinker in the garage, do whatever.
Yeah, that's important. You're right. Like, and that's one of the conversations that Lindsay and I have all the time, is like, figure out what that looks like for you, whether it's, what fills your bucket, whether that's tinkering in the garage, doing little home projects, whether it's going for a run, taking the dog for a walk, playing with the kids, whatever it is that fills your bucket and gets you, back in that right headspace. You and your partner need to sort of know what that is, so you can communicate that back and forth to each other, right? So, and Lindsay's great for that. She says, yeah, you're in your head, like, what do you need to do to fill your bucket? Do you want to go to the mountains for a day? Whatever it is you need, tell me and I'll make it happen, right? And that's the value of, a really good partnership and teamwork and all those types of things, right? So,
and that's transparency, that's communication, that's understanding.
Yeah, for sure.
That's very important in relationships to have.
Oh, totally. Like, a lot of things in relationships and anything in life and work and relationships, it breaks down to the very basic fundamentals of communication, right? And those open lines of communication and being direct with each other and talking about it, right? Because it's super unfair of me to expect Lindsay to A, be able to read my mind in terms of what I'm feeling, and B, be able to read my mind, what the solutions are for that. Yes, it's a heck of a lot easier for each other if we just ask, right? But,
and it's funny, I talked to someone recently about that, but texting and context, that's can get confusing for many. You say something, but it's better in person. It's better online. It just, if you can see the person saying it, it's better than just via text.
Yeah, for sure. Pick up on the vibe and the cues and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
So, Lorne, for the listeners, when you were a firefighter, did you know at the time you were struggling with mental health, PTSD, all these emotions going through you, or was it always numb? It's a job. I got to go. I got to do it. So earlier in this conversation, we talked about fatalities. You had gone to one or many, I bet, in life through your career. But when you're there, how do you go home and just, go to sleep, go back the next day?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's something that's a work in progress for a lot of us, right? Over the years, we sign up for this job to help people on the worst day of their lives, right? So we know when we sign up, we're going to see and do and experience some things that most people, thankfully, will never experience in their life. As first responders, we do that every day, right? Like that's what we do for work. So, and it's interesting as I progress over the years and you go to more and more calls and get more experience and you get older and you learn. I really found, when I would take time away from work, whether it was from, being sick or a different job or whatever, that's when I could really reflect on how I was handling and managing that, because the life of the first responders is sometimes like that frog in the boiling water, right? You've got the frog in the boiling water and you slowly turn the heat up and it never jumps out, right? Because it doesn't realize, what's going on around it until all of a sudden it's too late. And that's kind of how sometimes things happen for us first responders. We get so immersed in this headspace, in this world, in this routine, and we just do it because we love it and we're helping people and we go. And then all of a sudden when, you step back and reflect, like, wow, this is actually having a huge impact on me. And, one of the things that I really realized, a lot of us as first responders are really good at that functional disconnection, right? So we're on scene, we're at a call, and it's like, I can functionally disconnect from all this chaos that's going on to do my job right now, which is focus on this individual, which that needs critical help or critical care, or put that fire out, or whatever the crazy emergency is that we've been called to. I find most of us are really good at that functional disconnection. We can separate that and do our job and get our job done. What some of us, I think, maybe struggle with or have opportunities for improvement with, myself included, is that functional reconnection, right? So we finished our call, and it was always so crazy to me. Like, that's exactly what you talked about. Like, how do you come home and move on to that? And how do you deal with that? And it was always really challenging because, like, quite literally 1 minute, I'm on scene, I'm doing CPR on somebody that, at the scene of a house fire that we've pulled out, and we do it and we get the messaging that, she's gotten to the hospital and she's probably going to make it. She's going to be okay. And then an hour later, I'm at home for my daughter's birthday party, for, 4-year-old birthday party. And all these kids are in the house, and it's just like your head is in all these different spaces. Your hands still smell like the smoke. You're just like, and it's like, now I got people crying about, they've got the wrong cake or the wrong pizza. And it's like, this is really difficult. That functional reconnection is really challenging, like I said, for myself, and I think a lot of others in the first responder world, because, like I said, we're seeing and doing the craziest of things that you can't even make up. And then the next moment you're expected to be back to that regular world and transition right back into that very smoothly. And that's hard. And how you do that is, like we talked about, is with that clear lines of communication, right? And, one of the things I learned in one of the courses that I took is, like, when you're coming off shift, and you've got a partner or a spouse or a person at home that you're coming home to, let them know what you're coming in at, right? It's like, hey, I'm off shift, I'm on the way home, I'm coming in at an 8 out of 10. We had a crazy night. And then your partner on the other end knows, okay, like, Lorne's coming in hot, right? He's coming in hot here, so I got to try and do my best to, give him space or whatever it is that he needs. Because, you come off a night shift, you've been up for however many hours, then you're expected to transition back into that world. It can be challenging at times, right? And the communication goes both ways, because it's like, if you send that to your partner and say, okay, I'm coming in at an 8 or whatever, and they say, well, I had a crazy night, all the kids were up throwing up all night, I'm sitting at a 9 or a 10, I can't do this. And it's like, okay, then I need to be like, okay, I need to step back and say, I need to bottle my stuff up or park it for a couple minutes, not necessarily bottle it, but park it for a little bit to help them out. And it's that give and take of that relationship, right? To make sure things are managed. But without doing those communications, neither person has any clue, right? And then it's like, then all of a sudden this wedge of resentments gets driven in there, and you're both pissed off at each other and you have no idea why, right? Because you're trying to compare as to whose night was worse or this or that or whatever, and nobody wins in those comparisons anyways, right? So it all boils down to that, that critical communication and open lines and knowing where each other's at and how to serve each other better.
When you were diagnosed initially, Lorne, how did that go about? Were you at work? Something happened? Was it over time? Something happened?
Yeah, it was crazy. Like, it's a textbook case of kind of like everyone's worst nightmare, right? Like, I was living a healthy, active life. Our kids were 5 and 2 at the time. Our daughter was 5, our son was 2. I was setting personal bests in workouts. Things were going really well professionally with the fire department. Lindsay's an entrepreneur. Runs a couple businesses. Those were both going very, very well. Like, we were in a real sweet spot per se in life, right? Like, things were great. Like, we were happy. Everything was awesome.
And what year was this?
This 2021.
Oh my gosh, yeah. This is just recent.
It's fresh. Yeah, man. Yeah. And so then, so that was the first round. So I was having a little bit of discomforts in my abdomen area, like my stomach. And I called a friend of mine who's a doctor in Toronto, and he said, I think it sounds like a hernia. I can't see you, but that's kind of what it sounds like. So he's like, just pop over to the hospital. And if they have to do any scans or blood work, they can do it all there rather than trying to go the traditional route of, your family doctor and then go see a specialist and all that stuff. He's like, it'll be a one-stop shop over there. So I went over there, expecting to just be told I had a hernia and they'll figure it out and we'll go from there. And they did a CT scan while I was there. And I went there at 9 p.m, like after the kids went to bed. I told Linz, I was like, I'll just head over there. I'll be back in probably an hour or two. I was there. This was on a Sunday night. I was there till 4 p.m. the next day on Monday. I'd been there all night. They were doing scans and blood work and tests and all that stuff. And they came back and they said, yeah, you've got a gigantic tumor in the wall of your abdomen and you're in serious trouble. And so it's kind of that worst case scenario or everyone's worst nightmare where it's like, oh, they go in for something super minor and they go, no, you're actually in serious trouble here. And we got to do some critical interventions or you're not going to be around much longer. Right. If
they didn't deal with it, it could have been days where things could have...
not quite that. It wasn't like imminent like that. Like hard stop. You're not allowed to go home. It was kind of, because mine, it was in my abdomen area, but it wasn't impeding anything. It wasn't blocking my, my bowel or anything like that. It was just this huge mass. So I had what's called liposarcoma. So Terry Fox had an osteosarcoma, osteo meaning bone, right? Sarcoma meaning the type of tumor. So mine was lipo meaning fat. And then the same type of tumor that Terry had. So mine originated in the fat cells of my abdomen. So it wasn't attached to anything. It was just kind of growing in this space. And I'm not I'm a pretty lean dude. So it's always been a mystery to myself even today, because it grew to be about the size of a volleyball by the time they took it out. Like it was massive. And to be able to hide that on my frame was incredible. Like I felt like I was 7 months pregnant after I figured that out. But the time frame from, once they told me I had it to when it came out was exactly a month. So I went in, it was May 10th, and then on June 10th, they went in and took it out.
And when you went in, was it the size of a golf ball, or could you see it at the time?
When I went in for my first appointment, I could see there was a slight, there's a little bit of swelling right around my belly button. So like that was kind of like the telltale sign. I was like, okay, something actually is wrong here. Like it's not just, I didn't just eat, bad food a few days ago and it's still kind of lingering. Like there's actually something going on there. And that's when, like I said, when I explained it to my friend, he thought it was perhaps a hernia. So that's why I went in, and then they did the CT scan and the measurements came back and they're like, yeah, like it's around the size of a cantaloupe, but it's buried in your body. Like it was way down in my abdomen. So it's like walking around, you'd have no idea. Like I had no idea. Been there for a long time already. Right. And then by the time it got taken out, it was about the size of a volleyball is what the doctor told me. And once you know it's there, then you know it's there, right? And then the stress level like skyrockets through the roof, your appetite plummets. I started losing weight, and then you can see it, right? Because I started losing weight and you're like, there it is. Like I'm standing there in a t-shirt and you can see the little bulge as, it gets to those few days before the first surgery. And then, yeah, they went in and took it out. They took out a bunch of my intestines as well, just because it was in the proximity of that. So they took all that stuff out and pieced me all back together and kind of stapled me back up. And, the incision goes from your sternum down to your pelvis. So it's pretty big, right? To get in there and get everything out. And then, yeah, they put me back together and sent me on my way. And so healing round one sort of started on the day of my 39th birthday. So I went in for surgery on June 10th, and my 39th birthday was June 11th. And that's how I started my year. So started it quite literally at rock bottom, right? With dealing with something like that, through the power of my incredible network and the belief in myself and, mindsets and diets and exercise and all those things. I was able to sort of claw back out of that hole. And, we had an awesome year and a half in remission. Like I felt great. Again, I was back on the horse and things were going really well. And then they keep a pretty close eye on me in terms of surveillance. So I go in every 3 months for a CT scan to see what's going on. And in this past November, I went in for my routine scan. They found some problems that it had come back. And so right before Christmas, this past Christmas, I went in for a second surgery that was pretty similar to the first, except they did an experimental chemotherapy treatment while they were in there. And so what they did this time, for non-medical folks like myself, they call it hot chemotherapy. And basically what that is while they've got you split open, they take out all the problematic areas and then and do all that. And then while they've got you open, they quite literally like heat up chemotherapy and pour it into your abdominal cavity and basically marinate you in it, with the idea that hopefully it will kill any residual or remaining cells. And then they do that for like 2 or 3 hours and then suck it all out and close you back up, and then off you go. And again, you're kind of in that healing phase as you try to recover from that. So that one was right before Christmas, the second one.
With knowing, obviously you thought it was just going to be an hour to get checked up.
Yeah.
You're there till 4 p.m. the next day.
Yeah.
Did you start realizing something's wrong before they even came back to you to tell you there's something up?
Well, they told me, so why I was there for so long is they told me in the middle of the night, like they told me at 2 or 3 in the morning, like you're in trouble. We found something big. And so I knew right then, like I knew then at 2 or 3 in the morning, like you're in serious trouble here. And why I had to stay all the way until that time the next day is they had to wait for the surgeon to come in. He started at 9 in the morning. And then they wanted to take a biopsy, and that takes time to get lined up for that. So then I was just in the queue with everybody else that was waiting for tests and procedures. So I knew in the middle of the night, like I was in serious trouble. But then I had to sit there with that until, 4 p.m. No one else knew. I had to sit there until I came home and told my family, and then you sort of started that process. So I knew, like I said, in the middle of the night there, and then away you go.
What was going through your mind, and how do you stay calm through such a time? And you got a family, your life is good, work is good.
Yeah.
Like, why me?
Yeah, and it's funny. Like I never once thought that why me, and I never once because I knew immediately and right away that there's zero value in that. The fact is, it is me. Right. And that's the reality. It is me. And so there's no point wasting time or space or energy on why me, because it is. So I got to focus on what I can do and what I have to do now to keep me around. Right. So that's really where I focused that energy and really built that network, because that was awful, man. Like it was, I struggle to explain how difficult that is, because especially that time frame between when I knew and I hadn't told anybody yet. That was the worst spot, because you're sitting there and it's like, man, I'm gonna change some people's lives tomorrow with this news, and not necessarily for the better, right? Like they're gonna wake up to some crippling news. Like I tell you, man, like telling your wife and your kids that, and your parents, that hurt more than anything. Having to explain that, calling up your mom and your dad and telling them that you're really sick and they can't do anything to help you. I can only imagine what that would feel like as a parent to have your child deliver that message, and that was awful. You know what I mean? Like that was awful. Like that's still challenging. Sorry, my dog's barking there.
My little guy's right here too.
Yeah, probably heard each other. But yeah, that's a tough space to be in, right? Kind of knowing that information and having to be sort of the deliverer of that was awful. But that's where it was. That's where we were, and that's where it started. And then you got to get to work, right? And focus on your next tasks and your next objectives, which was surviving, right?
How did your wife, your children, mom and dad take it? And then obviously friends, but the internal circle, how did they? Yeah.
And Lindsay, she's she's my hero. Like, she's amazing. I was talking to somebody the other day about her, and I said, honestly, I wouldn't be here. I'm really confident I wouldn't be here without her. Obviously that's devastating news for her to hear that and to have to try and process that. But she was such a rock star and such a pillar of strength, and she really helped me up. We obviously had some very tough nights and tough moments and conversations and lots of tears. But she really propped me up that first time around and helped me get through that, right? And our kids, like I said, were 5 and 2 at the time, so it's like I didn't even really. In some ways, that's kind of a blessing, you know what I mean? Because it's like they still don't understand the magnitude of what our family has been through these last 2 years with both of these times, right? They're now 7 and 4, but they still don't get it. Even the other day, my son was looking at. I got a big scar. My son's looking at that, and he's like, "Dad, what's that from? What's that from?" You know what I mean? And it's like, to try and explain that to a 4-year-old now is still even challenging, right? It's like, oh, something was growing inside Daddy and the doctors had to take it out, but I'm okay now. And then you leave it at that, right? And he asks me what my favorite dinosaur is and we move on, right? And, but explaining that to my parents was awful. And my mom and I have a very close relationship, and she's an incredible person in my life. And I still feel bad about that, having to make that call, because it's just like, that's a moment she'll never forget either, right? She told me she was in line at the bank, you know what I mean? And she got that call and she's like, every time I'm at that bank, I think of that, and it's like, it's hard. And no matter where she was when I phoned her, it would be the same, but it's just difficult, right? And
it's a trauma in the environment, right? It's a remembrance. Yeah, it'll take you back to flashbacks. Yeah,
exactly, man. Yeah, exactly. So, but they were all good. Everyone rallied, and we all stood up and pulled together and amassed an incredible team of family, friends, and professionals around us to keep us moving forward and to keep me around. So it's been an incredible ride, that's for sure.
And how long was the recovery time for the first surgery?
From the first one, it depends what you want to draw the line at for. This is an interesting.
When is it fully recovered, right?
Right. And for me physically, there was an issue with one of the nerves in my left leg. So when I woke up from that surgery, my left leg didn't work. Like I couldn't move it. And initially they thought it was from the epidural and all that stuff. And then it didn't really come around. So I was quite literally running around like Terry Fox for the first while. I came home on crutches and then a cane, and then you sort of dragging your foot around. It didn't hurt, but it just wasn't working. It was like your leg was asleep the whole time, right? So it took a while for that. From the physical spot, I would say, geez, and again, it depends what your threshold is, because I'm a pretty stubborn dude. Like I remember looking back at the pictures. The surgery was on June 10th, and then I was running back, back to running like 5Ks and mountain biking and stuff in late July and early August. So it's typically like 6 to 8 weeks is kind of like the physical recovery side of it. Mentally, it took me a lot longer than that. I really struggled with the mental aspect of facing my own mortality the first time around. So I didn't go back to work on the fire trucks till January, because with this experience, I've got a full new bag and list of triggers and issues to deal with. And when you're a first responder in those sensitive environments, you got to be aware of that from that mental perspective of, can I handle and can I deal with that? And one of the first calls I went to when I was back on the job was a terminal cancer patient. Right. And for everyone else on the truck, it probably wasn't as impactful, but for me, I was like, geez, like this is my world. I'm still in this world. Right. I was like, this is really close to home, and it really bothered me. Right. So the mental side of preparing and recovering from that took a lot longer than the physical side. And from the mental side of it, like, I don't think it's, I was talking to somebody about this the other day. It's not something you get over. It's not something you get through. It's something you learn to move forward with. Right. And, that day changed my life when I got sick, and I can never go back to that old version of me. That bridge has been burnt. I cannot get back to that. And I'm okay with that. I've accepted and learned how to mourn and accept that. But now you got to move forward with it and figure out how to be the best version of yourself moving forward. Right.
In what you have today. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. And I've got some incredible friends that really remind me that, we got to live in the present, live for now, because every day is a gift, right? Like, quite literally, as I wake up, I was like, man, like this is amazing. Today is awesome, and my kids love me, and I'm still here, and take full advantage of that, right? Like full throttle. Like, let's do this. Let's get after it, right? And
because I can't even imagine, like, as a firefighter, you're going to these scenes, and at times, you just see a family wiped out, or somebody gone, a loved one gone for something. You think, wow, that's going to change somebody's life today. Yeah. And maybe they didn't say goodbye, or I love you one last time.
We are involved in people's most intimate and incredible moments in their lives as first responders, right? Like, and we're part of that. We never see them again, for the most part, but their lives change that day, and we're a part of that. How we handle, that situation, how we speak to them, and how we treat that situation is, life altering for those people, right? And to be on the other side of that all of a sudden was a really weird, kind of flip and turning of the tables, right? And something that I wasn't really anticipating or expecting, and it was really challenging to be there in that space, right?
Lorne, you're here today. This is amazing.
Oh, totally, man. I'm here for it. I love it. And now my goal is to, to try and help people, right, and inspire them and really teach them that a really difficult diagnosis doesn't necessarily mean death right away, right? And you still got time, and you can still make a difference and still have an impact. And one of the things I really learned between my first surgery and my second is the value of front loading your life, with all that mental headspace work, that mind space work, that physical fitness, that good nutrition, all that stuff. Front load your life with all the good things, and then next time you're going to have to face something in life, it's a lot easier to come through on the other side as a better version of yourself. Because I mean, the recovery from my second surgery, even though it was even more invasive with that treatment and stuff, was amazing. And I'm not just sitting here to say, like, as a narcissist, to pad my own stats and pump my own tires. It's just like, that's where the value of enriching those relationships of your people that are sitting at your table, taking care of yourself mentally, physically, and all those types of things really sets you up for success when you're going to have to deal with the tough challenges in life, because we all have to deal with them at some point, right? So spend time and energy investing in yourself now. They're a lot easier and more manageable when they do happen.
It's interesting. Everyone's got their own path, their own journey. But for myself, mental health's been really big for me, because forever I was a different character, but that person is no longer me. Yeah. And that person dies, and you look back at that person and you say, "Oh, that was you," or at moments in your life, but you're thankful for the depth you've gone in within yourself to have the conversations like this.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And that's great to hear that, you're there and you have that self-realization, right? Like when I used that line before, you've got two lives and the second one starts when you realize you only have one. You get it, right? And it's so enriching and fulfilling to talk to other people that get it. And that's who I try to surround myself with, is those types of people, because they get it, right? And they get it, and they want to talk about meaningful things and talk about, supporting each other and lifting each other up and helping us all be the best versions of ourselves. Because could you imagine, a world filled with people like that?
Oh my God.
It would be such an amazing and powerful place, right? And, by you and I having these conversations and sharing this space, I think, we're helping move that needle in the right direction, right? And even growing and learning from each other, right? If nothing else, even if no one else was listening to this conversation, and
this is great.
That's still great too. That's still a win, right? So
it is a win.
That's awesome. I always love sharing the space and conversation with like-minded people like yourself.
We have learned that we needed to chase a purpose greater than ourselves. And I think once you have that, life becomes beautiful. Oh. Even though that there's the ups and downs, the noise, and everything in between. It's like, if you have a purpose, if you have a mission, stick to it. Just keep going.
Totally. And it just sort of snowballs, right? And it becomes so incredibly, wonderful then. And I one of the things I always talk to people or ask them, I'm like, how you doing out of 10, man? Give me a number out of 10. And they tell me, and some people are honest, and some people aren't. And they ask me, like, how about you? I'm like, hard 10, like 10 out of 10. How can you be that? And it's like, because it's a choice, it's a decision, right? And then you're on this path, and it's like, I got to make the most of this, because like we talked about at the beginning of our chat, I don't know how much time is left in my time bank, right? No. And neither do you, right? So you got to make the most of it and take full advantage and not waste these opportunities, because once they're gone, right?
Exactly.
And you got to, full throttle and go for it, right?
Absolutely. Can you hear my dog snoring by any chance?
No, I cannot.
Okay, good.
No.
He's a French bulldog, so.
Oh, chronic respiratory issues.
Oh my God.
That's hilarious.
So when you got the news about the second diagnosis, how did that happen? So were you at work? And
it was. Yeah, that was tough. Because I mean, after the first time, you're so desperately, as a cancer patient, you're so desperately trying to put that further and further behind you in the rearview mirror, and because the longer you go without a problem, the better your chances are, and things, more in the clear you are, right? And so I had my scan, and then I had some conversations with some of the doctors, and it looked like I was back in trouble again, and things had come back, and I actually got the call while I was at work and on shift, and that was awful, because it's like it takes you right back to that square one and day one of this whole process, right? And I literally collapsed on the floor in tears, right? And it was my crew members that helped pick me back up, or giving me hugs and helping me pack my gear off the truck, and it was awful. You know what I mean? Like, it was so awful. And then knowing I had to go home and again tell that same news to Lindsay again was awful.
And then tell mom again.
and tell everyone again. And it's just like, I know it's not my fault, but it's just like, I'm the one delivering the news. So that's a huge burden and a huge weight for me to be the one that delivers that. Right. And it was very painful to do that. And, the second time I came home from work, because it was like 9 p.m, we worked 24-hour shifts, and it was 9 p.m. And I remember I remember standing at the doorway with my key in my hand. And I was like, I'm going to destroy her again, Lindsay again. And as soon as I put that key through the hole and turned it and the door opened, she knew, right? Because we were waiting for the call, and she knew. I didn't have to say anything. She collapsed in tears. We sat there in that moment and cried together and started over, and took the lessons that we had learned the first time and talked about how we were going to tell our kids again. And, we started that process all over again. And it was really, really, really tough. But the interesting thing about the second time around is Lindsay and I kind of changed roles in a little ways, because for the first time, she was my rock. The second time, I was more of the rock, because I was like, no, I got this. Like, they called and told me, they're like, we got to do a similar surgery. Like, we're going to try to get you in before Christmas, so you're home for your daughter's birthday on Christmas Eve. And like, this is what we're going to do. It's like, I can handle all of that. I can handle all that. Let's do it. Let's start this. Let's get the show on the road. If you want to come tomorrow, I'll come tomorrow. Like, whenever, because I had built myself up to, like I said, levels mentally and physically that I'd never been to before. So I knew with full confidence that I could handle that. And I was ready to go. And once Lindsay saw that in me, she's like, oh shit, he's got this. He's not joking around. Like, he's ready to go. That brought her back up. And then we were back, hand in hand, moving forward and ready to keep going on this. Right. And so the second time around, my recovery was way faster, way better. I remember I went in on, I think my surgery was on the 12th, December 12th. I was home on the 19th. And I ran, right in time for Christmas. And then I ran 10 kilometers in my basement on New Year's Eve. I was like, there's no way I am ending this year on a bad note. I'm ending this year on a high note, and I can do this. And I need to show my body and everyone else that's worried about me and scared about me that I'm still here, and I still got lots of fuel left in the tank, and I'm still here to do this. Right. So I struggled through 10 kilometers on the treadmill in the basement on New Year's Eve, but it was incredibly powerful. Right. And my doctors weren't as cool with it, because they're like, what the fuck are you doing, man?
It's so true.
I had to do it. Right. It was a thing for me, right. To show myself that that resilience, and that I'm literally still here. Right. And there's still, lots of life left in me. Right. And we can still keep writing this story and making memories and sharing this time together.
It's that inner warrior, that will to survive. Because I've heard it, if someone's stressed, and we know this, if we're stressed, upset, things are not going well, we start becoming sick, and things get worse, progressive. You'll start with a flu and a cold, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
How did you stay in a positive headspace, at least the second time around, to say, you know what? I'm not scared. Even of course, it's. Of
course, I was scared. Yeah, I'm not afraid to say that I was scared for sure. But it's about having the courage and the bravery to continue moving forward. And being scared is a natural human thing, yes, right? Absolutely. And as first responders, there's been lots of times where it's like, okay, I'm scared going to do this or deal with this, but it's like, you can't let that prevent you from, achieving your objectives and accomplishing your task. Right. So for me, it was really about relying and leaning on, again, that network that I created and surrounded myself with about, those really rich relationships that I'd cultivated, and leaning on those people again as that source of strength and inspiration to keep me going, and learning that, just because I have this difficult disease or diagnosis doesn't mean that's the definition of my life, or my life ends now, right? You can still live a life full of gratitude and abundance despite all of those things. And that's a choice and a mindset thing, right? And I had to take ownership of that and make those difficult choices. Like I said, there's no value in having the fixed mindset and playing the victim card and all that shit, because then nobody wants to hang around you. Nobody wants to be around you. Nobody wants to help you. You're a drain, right? And like I said before, there are obviously bad days that are still in there. But at the end of the day, it was up to me to make those critical decisions and prioritize and execute on my objectives. Like, this is what I need to do, and I need to go out and do it. Maybe not physically, but whether it is, outsourcing some stuff to my network or whatever it is, but that decision comes down to you as the individual. You are the captain of your own ship. So take it wherever you want to take it. Nobody else is. And once you realize that, you can accomplish a lot of great things, right? And often, an unpopular opinion is, one of the things that I say sometimes that some people don't like is the only thing we're victims of is our own decisions, right? And that's not applicable for every situation. Obviously, there's exceptions to every rule, but that's really it, right? The only thing we're victims of is our own decisions, right? So once you realize that and swallow that pill, it can be tough to swallow, but once you do swallow it and realize, hey, I'm actually in control of a lot of this, then that's super empowering, and then off you go, right? Get to work and you're off to the races, right? Because that's, when we're dealing with our stressful situations or whatever it is in life, it doesn't matter what it is, but when we're faced with those tough choices and those tough calls and those tough moments, we feel like we've lost control and we've lost that power. And that's why it's a really difficult situation. And for me, I can speak to that at some of the deepest of levels, because it's like I sit there and I'm talking to some of my doctors. Doctors all over North America that were looking at my stuff. And I remember talking to one from the States, and I said, what do I do differently? Nothing. Like, don't bother doing anything differently. Well, do you have any medicine? Is there anything I can take? Not really. That leaves you in a very tough, very difficult situation when there's a doctor saying, don't change anything about your life, and there's nothing that I can give to help you in this situation. You feel pretty powerless when you walk out of that appointment and hang up that phone, right? So, but then when I realized, I turned around and I talked to some other folks and realized, hey, there actually are things that I can do to enrich my life and build myself back better, despite, what they said, about there's no meds that I can take or whatever. There's no magic pill, right? There's no magic pill for my cancer. There's no magic pill for life, right? And that's why when it comes back to you taking control of that situation and your own situation, that's when you realize that you are the magic pill, right? You are that magic pill. Yeah, and off you go, right? I'm like, okay, it's me. It's up to me. So that's when I had that huge mindset shift, and it's like, okay, I need to, really work on my mindset, make sure I've got, good nutrition, make sure I've got good exercise, make sure I'm healthy, make sure I'm hanging out with like-minded people and surrounding yourself with all those good things to elevate you and lift you up and carry you through that stuff, right? And that's really, really what has kept me here, through all of this, right? Is taking, that intense responsibility for my own situation and my own actions and going for it, right? And getting after it and doing the hard work.
Yeah. They say negativity is louder than positivity.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. I can read 100 reports that say I'm going to die in the next 5 years, right? And if I only read one that says you're going to live, those ones speak way louder. That's what's, stuck in the back of your head and haunting you and keeping you up at night for sure. You're 100% bang on with that. I like that.
From learning your story, Lorne, is you're not doing this just for you. This is a willpower to survive for your wife, your children, your mom, dad, your friends, colleagues.
Yeah. Sure.
It's beyond you now. This is
for sure.
That warrior's like, this is for them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, this is so much bigger than me. And and when you grow up, I'm not sure what the age is or when it is when you actually learn who your parents really are. You know what I mean? What kind of people your parents really are. There's that time in your life when you figure it out and you sit there and be like, wow, they worked so hard for me. The sacrifices they made, everything they did was for me. And you realize what they went through to get you where you're at today. And I realize that as we sit here and talk today, like that's what Lindsay and I are doing for our kids. At one point in their life, they're going to learn who we really are and what we actually went through. And that's going to be an incredibly powerful learning tool for them, right? To see, okay, this is how mom and dad dealt with that. They worked so hard to still give us a healthy and normal, whatever that looks like, normal life growing up, despite, the most difficult of circumstances that they're dealing with, right? And yeah, this is way bigger than me, it's up to me to, I always say you're the author of your own story and make sure it's worth reading, right? And if you write that story well and do a good job of that story will be told well after you're gone and long after you're no longer here, and will continue to have that ripple effect in the next generations and other communities where it's told, right? And for me, that's what it's all about. And as a lifelong helper and people that I'm a chronic helper. That's all I want to do is help people, right? I can't do that on fire trucks anymore. I've now got a different avenue and opportunity to do that, right? Because if people have been listening to me over the years, they'll know that one of my favorite things is to say is if you have the ability to give back, you have an obligation to do so. And this is my ability to do that, right? By sharing this story and sharing these lessons and being a message of hope for those who choose to hear it, and more of a warning for those that choose not to hear it, right? So, because honestly, man, like if this can happen to me, this can happen to anyone. I know that's cliche, but it's like, I'm the average guy next door. I'm the guy that takes your garbage out. I'm the guy that cuts your grass when you're on holidays. And if this can happen to me, that's not to scare anybody, but just happens.
It's reality.
Yeah. Right. So, it's like I said, it's the real deal.
Lorne, I lost my mom August 7th, 2019. So again, cancer, and it was just within months gone.
Yeah.
It messes with you, it takes you down some weird paths, and then you also realize life is a gift. Enjoy it. The ride. Cherish every moment. Interactions. Sure. Keep it meaningful though.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
What is OWN? So I see you rocking OWN a lot. So for the listeners, what is that?
So that's the OWN Cancer campaign. So that's for the new Calgary Cancer Center, which is now the J.E. Child, the Arthur J.E. Child Comprehensive Cancer Center. That's in Calgary. So I do a lot of volunteer work with that campaign to help raise funds to get those doors open as soon as possible. So I work very closely with Alberta Cancer Foundation and the OWN Cancer group to spread that awareness and give people that message of hope, because when you're in this, when you cross that world into the cross that bridge into the cancer world, one of the biggest things you're looking for is hope, right? And to me, the OWN campaign is about owning your own cancer story and owning cancer rather than it owning you. And I'm confident to sit here and say, I own cancer. It does not own me. And that's about having to get to that space where it did own me for a while, for sure. It did own me for a while. It took me a long time to get to this space, but through my own decisions and executing on my own objectives and priorities, I own it now. Yes, it's still a major part of my life, but I own it, right? And so I try to spread that message to other patients that, there is hope out there. And, they're building that new facility in Calgary that's supposed to be opening next year. And that place will save and change lives for decades and decades to come, well after you and I are gone, right? And this cancer stats, as you well know, we're all impacted by cancer one way or another. And, I'm very sorry to hear, of your experience with it, because it's so challenging, right? And the scary or uncomfortable stats about cancer in Alberta is 1 in 2 Albertans will face a cancer diagnosis in their lifetime. 1 in 2, right? That's a wild stat. And 60 people are diagnosed with cancer every day in Alberta. 60 yesterday, 60 today, 60 tomorrow, and it just carries on, right? So as you and I have this conversation right now, 1 in 2, good news is I've already had it, so hopefully that takes you off the list. But that's a crazy stat, right? And so when you think about that, moving forward, that building that they're opening and working on right now is that beacon of hope, right? Because they're really changing, and cancer's come so far, even in the last couple of years while I've been involved in it, right? And they're making incredible advances. And although it's really weird to say, there's never been a better time to get diagnosed with cancer than right now, right? Because we've got some of the smartest people, in Calgary, right now working in that facility and are going to be in that facility, and they'll be some of the best in the world. That's going to be a world-class treatment facility with world-class physicians doing incredible things to save and change lives and give people more time and more moments with their family. And that's why I'm always so humbled and thrilled and proud to work with that organization and help spread the incredible work that they do, because I always say, like, their work matters, and I'm living proof of that, right? So I always try to, keep them going and keep them inspired, motivated, say, keep doing what you're doing, because it gives people like me more breath in our lungs to keep going, right, and keep sharing our stories.
Did you ever know a gentleman by the name of Jim Button?
I heard his name. Yeah. So I'm familiar with this.
Yeah, he recently passed away, but yes. Yeah. He was doing a lot, and he reminds me a lot of what you're doing, giving back to the community now. And it's similar. Like if you found hope and you fought through what you're going through, now it's your turn to give back to the people.
100%. Yeah. 100%.
People should do that.
100%, and I've learned in my journey here that all we can do in life is give. That's it. That's it. When you break it down to life's rawest form, all you can do is give, because you cannot take anything with you.
Nothing's coming with us.
Nothing's coming with you. You're out of here, and it's a one-way ticket, and you're gone. Like, you don't get to take anything with you. So all you can do here is give, and give your love and give your wisdom and give your time, give your energy, whatever it is that you have. And that's why, I said before, if you have an ability to give back, you've got an obligation to do so, because when you're on that one-way train out of here, you're gone. Right? There's no giving. Then all your stuff's just here, and people are going to do whatever they're going to do with it. But yeah, exactly. Right. But you're gone. Right. So all you can do while you're here is give and give back. And again, like we said before, if everyone sort of did that in this society and in the world, like what a magical place it would be. Right. So,
and Lorne, it's not money. That's the thing.
No.
For the listeners, it's not money. We're talking about giving back money. It's your time. It's your knowledge,
your skills, like any of that stuff. Right. And yeah, time is, I'm always so appreciative of people's time when they give me their time. Like for you to sit here today with me and give me your time is that is the most, humbling and respectful thing that someone can do to me is give me their time, right? Because that's the most, as we know, that's your most valuable currency. So if you're giving me your time, gosh, like that sends such a powerful message, right?
I can say the same thing for you, brother. So thank you.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like we get it, right? We get it, right? And a couple
of weeks ago, we were going to plan the podcast, and you had mentioned, well, Zach, I have to go for a CT scan.
Yeah.
So every time you have a CT scan, it's still there. The anxiety. Well, I guess you said scanxiety.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And those are tough times. And I appreciate you, stick handling me to another day, because
of course,
my mindset is much better as we sit here today versus, trying to do it right beforehand, because, it's interesting. A lot of people will say, oh, those appointments will get easier with time. And it's like, maybe logistically they get easier time because I know where to park, and I know like the shortcuts, and I know I get to further cultivate more relationships with my doctors, and that's good stuff. But at the end of the day, those appointments, there's two possible outcomes. When I go in and sit in there and listen to the results, I'm either dying or I'm not. That's it. When you break down those appointments, that's what it is, right? And so, although I go through more of them over the years, the potential consequences of those appointments do not change, right? And we went into that appointment completely blind, and it's so, I got to tell you, like, it is so stressful sitting there when you're in that little waiting room, you're holding there waiting for the doctor to come through, and the results of those two questions are right on the other side of that door. Right. And it's just like, you're just sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting. And then they come in, and it's kind of like you hold your breath and you stare at them and you try to read their facial expressions and their eyes. And it's like, just say it, like, just tell me what it is. Am I good or am I not good? And it's like, okay, you're good. And it's like this euphoric weight, is lifted off your shoulders temporarily. And for those, next few days and weeks and moments, it's like, you're kind of back to normal for a bit. It feels really good, and life is good, and it feels amazing. And I try not to get too high on those ones, because I've also gone through appointments that are bad. And conversely, I try not to get too low, right? It's about staying in that middle spot, right? And sort of riding it out either way, and staying in that neutral space and being able to keep moving forward and focusing on your next tasks, whatever they are, and then accomplishing them and moving on, right? So, it was right when we were, talking a few weeks ago about booking this, it was like, man, it's things are the water's a little hot right now. And I try to go in with as much confidence and comfort as I can, knowing that, again, I've done everything I can. I'm in great shape. I go in with the mindset that I've done everything I can leading up to this appointment to be able to deal with whatever results they tell me, right?
This is not under control.
I've controlled what I can control. I'm at this level again, and I'm ready to deal with whatever you tell me. It'd be nice if you tell me this, but if you happen to tell me that, I'm still in a position to deal with it, right? So, sitting here today is a good day for sure.
Thank you for being here.
Oh man, I love it. It's all good.
Before we get going here, what is something that you could say to someone that has gone through or is going through something similar to what you just went through and are going through?
Yeah, and it's interesting because the process is kind of similar, right? It's an all hazards approach to a process. So no matter what the problem is, it's like the kind of process is the same in terms of helping people. So if someone's going through stuff, first off, don't give up. Never give up that hope, right? If I would have given up, if I would have stopped, I'd be gone, right? And it's so worth it to get through that other side, because on the other end of that extreme suffering is a peace and comfort that you never knew existed. I'm also aware not everyone makes it to that other side, right? So especially in my world, right? I've met and talked to lots of folks that are no longer here, right? And that's just the way this world works, right? But don't give up that hope, and realize that you have so much power and control over your situation, no matter what it is, right? No matter what your situation is. So don't give up that hope. Make sure you take that, prioritize and execute, prioritize on taking control of your situation and the decisions that you need to make, and execute on those decisions. Make sure you have, a healthy diet. Make sure you're putting good food in your body so it can be fueled properly to accomplish whatever you're trying to do. Make sure you're hydrated. Make sure you're exercising. Make sure your mind is in a good space. Make sure you surround yourself with like-minded people so you can cultivate those relationships and really rely on them to help you through that. And go for it, right? Like I said, you're the captain of your own ship. So put the pedal down and go for it, and don't give up that hope, because that's that, beacon of light that will get you through to the other side and pull you through that darkness. And once you get through to the other side, it's possible. And once you get through to that, you're going to be, like I said before, a version of yourself that you never knew was possible and never knew even existed. And when you get there, that's when you can have that real impact on others, and start sharing your story of hope and bringing them along with you, and changing, their lives as well.
Thank you for your time today, brother. Appreciate it.
Oh man, thank you so much. This is wonderful. I so appreciate your time and space and the opportunity to do this. And I feel like, we could sit here and talk.
Yeah, we could go all day. I love it.
Yeah, man, have a nice coffee and hang out. And I'd love to, have another chat with you at some point and get together. And thank you so much for all the incredible work that you're doing. I know you spread a lot of awareness and incredible work in the community. So I hope you feel the thanks and appreciation for that, because what you're doing matters, right? The work that you're doing matters, and it's having an impact, and there's a huge ripple effect through our community for the incredible stuff that you're doing. So please keep it up, and our world needs more people like you in it, man. So keep up the great work. I'm proud and thrilled to be a part of your story, and I appreciate the opportunity.